named this sermon Down in the Valley. Down in the Valley. Have you ever gone on a spiritual retreat and had such a joyous and wonderful time, a deep experience that you wanted to stay there forever? Yeah, me too. You didn't want to come down. You know, maybe the speaker had been magnificent. The food had been just right. Those grits with a little bit of cheese on them did real good. The quiet times had produced such a wonderful effect. It was just what you needed. You could feel your face just glowing, an inner glow that came out. There was an excitement in your speech. Barbara and I have had experiences like that as we've gone through this 55 years together. We've had them together, we've had them separately. It's like being on top of a mountain. In fact, one of them was on top of a mountain down in Sewanee, Tennessee. I went to class and Barbara went around the convent where we were staying and all the grounds and listened to the nuns singing. And it was just an experience for her. She didn't want to leave. It's like being there with Peter and James and John as they soaked in all that had happened to Jesus. Is it any wonder that they didn't want to leave there? Is it any wonder that they wanted to build 3 tabernacles so that they could stay right there where they were? Is it any wonder that Jesus had to tell them not to dwell on this experience as they came down the mountain? Tell no one about the vision, he said, until the Son of Man has been raised from the dead. Wait a minute, I'm kind of getting ahead of myself here. Let's go back to the very beginning. This mountaintop experience follows a pattern in the Bible. We can find that pattern in our lives as well. When I open the Bible and turn to the very first sentence, here's what I read. In the beginning, when God created the heavens and the earth was formless and void, and darkness covered the face of the deep, while the wind of God swept over the face of the waters. The next 6 days, that wind from God swept over what started as a void, what started as darkness. And in those 6 days, God created first the physical things, light and dark, sun and moon, earth and sky. And then God began to create living things, plants, fish, animals, finally human beings. Before that 6 days, there was something, but after those 6 days, there was order to that something. On the 7th day, God finished all the work he had begun, and then God rested. Those numbers are important. 6 days God worked. Day 7, he finished the work and rested. But day 8, that's when human history begins. Something new was added to the mixture. After the creation stories, we hear about the Garden of Eden, this luxurious place where a person's every need is attended to. It's like that mountaintop experience. But it had to come to an end. With the eating of that forbidden fruit, the want for the knowledge of good and evil. Then Adam and Eve had to leave the garden, and they had to get to work. They had to do something. They had to act out something. Reading in the Bible a little bit further, we come to Exodus. And there we learn that God led his people out of Egypt. He appeared to them as a cloud by day and a fire by night, a pillar of fire by night. Moses was up front, following behind God. Moses was like that matter that God had used when he created the earth and everything else. Moses was a work in progress. He was a follower. He was a learner. And he was a mistake maker, just like perhaps we are too. He's speaking from experience. Yeah, I'd go along with that. One day, God called Moses up onto Mount Sinai. When Moses went up on the mountain, he took his closest followers part of the way. Then a cloud covered the mountain for 6 days. And on the seventh day, God called to Moses out of the cloud. God taught Moses. Moses remained there for 40 days, learning. Something new was happening. Something was being created. When Moses had gone up on the mountain, he had been a follower leader. But when he came down, he was the law giver. He not only had the tablets that had the 10 Commandments on them, but he also had about 200 or 243, I think it is, other laws as well. A great change had come over Moses. His face glowed brightly, that inner glow that comes out. His actions glowed as well. He needed to heal the people and prepare them for entering the promised land. This was his task after his mountaintop experience. In a way, it was his 8th day, the beginning of something new. In the first part of the gospel story, we hear how Jesus grew to adulthood, how he got his commission at his baptism. "This is my son, in whom I am well pleased," said the voice from the cloud. And from that moment, life changed for Jesus. He journeyed out into the wilderness where he was tested. Then he started gathering disciples around him. He went out, he found those disciples. And that little band of men that he chose began traveling around the countryside, doing ministry and learning as they went as well. One day, Jesus asked his disciples, "Who do people say that I am?" And they gave him an answer. And then he asked, "Yeah, but who do you say that I am?" In 6 days, there's that number 6 again. 6 days after Peter had confessed Jesus is Lord, he is the Messiah, Jesus is the Son of God. 6 days after that, they came to the mountain, probably Mount Hermon, all 9,320 feet of it. And Jesus asked Peter and James and John to follow him up onto that mountain. And when they got up there, they had a mountaintop experience like no other. Jesus' appearance changed before their eyes. His face became radiant. His clothes turned to a dazzling white. And he talked with Moses, the lawgiver, and Elijah, the first great prophet. And then God came and overshadowed them in a cloud. And he said, "This is my Son, the beloved, with whom I am well pleased." But he added one more thing. Listen to him. Listen to him. And the disciples fell on their faces with fear and trembling. How long were they there? The story doesn't say. But when Jesus came and touched them, they were refreshed enough to begin their journey back down the mountain. And they must have had just a little bit of time there, because I know when I've climbed a mountain and turned around to come back down again, I needed to rest before I did that. And as they climbed down, Jesus told them not to tell anyone about the experience until after he had been raised from the dead. Jesus did not want them to continue to live on top of that mountain. It was like the 8th day for them. Their pause was over. It was time to go to work now. From the foot of the mountain, Jesus started his purposeful journey toward Jerusalem and a waiting cross. But there was much healing along the way, much ministry that they did as they went. You know, I think we tend to always look at this time and see how Jesus got into trouble and how he finally ended up being nailed to a cross. But think of the good that he did during this time also. Think of the wrongs that were righted. Think of all the healing that was accomplished as he made his way toward Jerusalem. You and I have these 6th and 7th day experiences too. We have these mountaintop experiences when all of the learning that what we have done along the way comes together and forms something new within us. We have a glorious time while we were there, and something we wish, sometimes we wish we could just stay there forever. But the moment comes when that experience needs to come to an end. We have received what was important for us to receive. We have been rejuvenated. It's time to come down off the mountain. It's time to leave it behind. It's time to put what we've learned into practice. It's time to go into the valleys of life and do ministry. It's our 8th day. It is time to act. It is time to heal others, to lead others, to feed others. The same way Jesus did, even if that leads us to our own personal cross. The most important part of that is all the healing that can be done along the way. We have come near the end of what Nicholas Sparks calls the Great Pause. And from what I understand, Susan just told me that her family has COVID-19 right now, and that was the Great Pause. But we're getting close to the end of it. We have also come to the end of this Epiphany season. Today is the last Sunday in Epiphany. It's the season when Jesus, the Son of God, in all his wondrous ways, is made manifest to us. And I see us heading toward a season of Lent, a season when we can look at ourselves and see how we're doing. Like Moses, like Jesus' disciples, we have been following Jesus and learning as we go. Like Moses and Jesus' disciples, we have experienced mountaintop wonders. It's time now to come down into the valley and leave the mountain behind. Down in the valley, people are waiting for healing. Down in the valley, people are waiting for words of hope. Down in the valley, people are waiting to hear about our experiences so that we can be filled, so they can be filled as well. You must always remember that mountaintop experiences don't last. What does last is the healing, the serving, the living faithfully as children of God. That is what lasts. Pause is over, my friends. The valley awaits us to go out and heal others, feed others, clothe others, do all the wondrous things that we can do. Amen. If we stand, if we're able, and let's join our voices and profess our faith.